The Nets sort of gave an update on Kyrie Irving, and that is they don't really have an update on Kyrie Irving. I think this might be COVID related, or it feels like it's COVID related. That there might be protocols that he's got to go through before he can come back. Is the NBA involved in this? And I believe that is the case right now. I don't know if Kyrie Irving just checked out and said what happened at our nation's capital troubled him, and then maybe he started to look at the bigger picture. Am I just a basketball player? Do I want to be more? I have no idea. Then there was a report that came out that maybe he and KD, there's a little distance in their relationship. There was also a report that he wasn't all in on Steve Nash being hired as the head coach. This might be something as simple, for the lack of a better word, of a COVID-related issue. Was he partying, out of mask on, his sister's birthday, and is that what is preventing him from coming back? Also, here was the big topic yesterday. We got done with the show, and then McLovin goes, are the Nets, is this the best three that's ever been on the floor together with the same team? And then all of a sudden, everybody had an opinion on this. And then we took a break, and then we came in this morning, and then we picked up on the conversation again. Here is Jay Williams, the ESPN NBA analyst, on the best trio ever assembled.
If there's anything that should grab Kyrie Irving's attention, it is this trade. This trio is better than the trio that I saw when Kevin Durant went to Golden State, and that's with Klay Thompson, and that's with Stephen Curry. Wow. It's better than the trio that I saw with LeBron James and D. Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami. People are going to ask questions about how do you make it work. Here's how you make it work. Kyrie Irving, move off the ball. James Harden, you are on the ball. James Harden averaged around 10 assists per game. If you watched the game last night against the Knicks, Kevin Durant doesn't need the ball in his hands. I think they might be the best assembled in the history of the league.
Okay. This is strong words. Jay, of course, played in the NBA and has been an analyst at the mothership quite some time. He's got his opinion on this. And when you start to look at these trios, it's do they fit together? Because individually, you can say this is as talented as we've seen. But that doesn't always work. It's does it fit? And that's where I have my big questions. Because Kyrie is talented. I mean, he's never won an MVP. He has a hard time staying healthy. He ruined things in Cleveland. He ruined things in Boston. And he may do his best to ruin things in Brooklyn, for all I know. Extremely talented, maybe the best handle I've ever seen on somebody in NBA history. But I don't know how he fits in. I don't know how Harden fits in. I know Kevin Durant can fit in because he has fit in. And he seems like he has a willingness to, okay, I can get 30 on 16 shots because I can go to the line. He plays defense. I'm not worried about KD. I'm worried about the other two here. Because if you start to look at greatest trios in NBA history, what did they achieve? Because I don't know what these three are going to achieve. And if you don't have a title after 2 years, then this has been a failure. You got to get to the NBA Finals. You got to be playing for a championship before I'm going to acknowledge just how great the three are. When LeBron and Wade and Chris Bosh were there, okay, LeBron and Wade, two of the greats of all time. Chris Bosh was a perennial all-star and kind of sacrificed his game for the betterment of making it a lethal trio. You had Boston. You had Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and you had Ray Allen. Great players, all Hall of Fame players. They fit together. You can throw in Rondo there as well, the fourth, and he's a Hall of Famer as well. But if you're looking at the big three, the big threes that work, Rodman, Pippen, and Jordan, it worked. Rodman knew his role, Pippen knew his role. Jordan, of course, did what Jordan always did. You had Kareem, and you had Magic, and you had James Worthy. James Worthy was never unleashed because James Worthy, to me, could have been a 30-point scorer if he wanted to. And you had Magic there, and you had Kareem. Kareem wasn't the Kareem that we saw in the 70s, but they played well together because Magic made sure you understood what your roles were. I don't know, like James Harden Is he going to be the guy who says, I'm going to dictate, I'm going to have the ball, Kyrie off the ball, then you have KD, Steve Nash? What role is he going to play in all of this? But when you start to talk about big threes, is it just the talent that we're assessing here? Because if I look at what Jay Williams or listen to what Jay Williams was saying, okay, best trio ever. Harden's won an MVP. KD's won a couple of titles. Harden hasn't won anything. Kyrie won and hit the big shot against Golden State. You can also look at when the Lakers, I mean, somebody brought this up, and I don't think that this is accurate. The Lakers acquired Gary Payton and Karl Malone. They had Shaq and Kobe, but Gary Payton and Karl Malone were not great. They weren't great. At one point, they were the alpha, but, when they got to Payton and Karl Malone, or they got Steve Nash, that they were nowhere near what they were in their prime. So I don't factor that in. And anybody who factors that in doesn't know what Payton and Karl Malone were like when they went to the Lakers there. So if you're going to have your trio here, I mean, I'm curious if people go, hey, this is the best trio that I remember. You're going to base it off results. We don't have the results with the Nets. But if you say talent level-wise, okay. I mean, it's an interesting discussion. But trios sometimes work and sometimes they don't work. I would still take Golden State with KD, Steph, and Clay and throw in Draymond Green. Like, that's my fourth. I feel pretty confident here. Because even when you had Draymond Green as your third best, they were still pretty good. But I had Clay, no drama. Steph knew that KD was the best player, and KD knew he was the best player. And if he didn't get hurt, they were gonna win another title there. Yeah, McLovin.
You're telling me Curry really knew KD was the best player? Because as I recall, that's not exactly how it was the whole time.
Well, I think Steph Curry shared extremely well there. I think the tension was Draymond Green, and Draymond Green realized that KD was there to win a title and maybe not there for the long haul. I think that's where the friction started, it felt like. Yeah, McLovin.
Why the big three argument seems silly to me is because, like, when LeBron and Wade and Bosh got together, they were all like mid-20s and at their peaks. I feel like this is closer to the old Lakers team because Harden, Kyrie, and KD are not Harden, and they're all in their low 30s coming off surgeries, It feels like they're distressed assets, not like those players at their peak.
KD is still great.
I know, but I'm nervous about the Achilles,
Yeah, well, yes, you have to worry about that. I'm worried about Harden and, is he going to get in shape? And I'm worried if Kyrie really wants to play basketball.
Right. Are those guys the same players they were at 26? That's what I'm kind of worried about.
No.
That's why, like, when the Heat got together, everyone's like, they're going to win 3 titles. Nobody's saying this Nets team is going to win 3 titles.
And then they didn't win the first year with that group. Yeah, Paul.
It does compare well to the Celtics, like you said. Ray Allen was coming off a season where he's averaging 26 for Seattle, and he was the man. Kevin Garnett was coming off a season where he's averaging 24 and 14 for the Timberwolves, and he was the feature guy. And they were all 30 years old, and Paul Pierce averaged 26 the year before they joined forces.
Yeah.
They were all the alphas of their team, but all three, like McLovin said, were healthy going into that big 3 run they had.
And I know that we always love to christen what is new. We always love to go, that's the best we've ever seen, because we have short memories. But if you're just saying you put together these 3 personalities, and I would stress personalities, then I find that really interesting. Because you have 3 of the most sensitive superstars to play together. And that's going to also, that factors in as well with these guys. They let little things bother them. And I think that's a factor that I don't know how you can measure. But it's going to be an issue with these guys. What is said, whispered, who said it, did they say it, did they mean it? But James Harden didn't show up for training camp. Kyrie hasn't shown up. And KD's coming off the Achilles. And I don't like asterisk. I'm going to put a big asterisk next to this one. When we say the most talented trio of all time, I don't like individual. I like team talent because we've seen individual talent. And I go back to the Philadelphia 76ers in 1977 when they went against Portland. Dr. J, George McGinnis, Doug Collins, Darryl Dawkins, They had an unbelievable world be free. They had as much talent as you can put on a basketball floor. And they lost to a Portland team that had one superstar in Bill Walton, a very good player in Maurice Lucas, and then a bunch of role players who knew their roles. Talent is great. Talent always doesn't always win. Yes, Eden.
Did the Lakers win last year because of like great team chemistry or because they had a couple of awesome players?
Well, I think it helps having awesome players, but you also have to have those role players as well. And, I mean, they had drama-free. Remember Frank Vogel? People forget Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel? Is he going to be able to handle LeBron? Drama-free. And I think that was the key. They just went out there and played basketball. Now, there was drama, but I think they handled the drama really, really well. Yes, McLovin.
Well, the common ingredient is LeBron seems to know how to play team ball. He knows how to be a co-superstar.
Well, it starts with him. I don't know who it starts with in Brooklyn.
KD?
I don't think so. I think it has to start with Harden. Harden's going to have the ball. He's going to have the ball. And Kyrie's got to be the off guard. And then you have KD in there. And I know people brought up the Celtics. And, you know, in a different era, okay, but not in this era. Like Bob Cousy, Bill Sharman, Bill Russell, no, that doesn't work. They won a lot of titles. It doesn't work. They were great team players because I could put in 7 other guys, Sam Jones and Casey Jones and Tommy Heinsohn, but no, they don't factor in. I mean, these are MVP guys that were, you know, Harden has been in the MVP conversation, top 5, I think, the last 6 years. And KD has won the MVP. Yes, McLovin.
Is there any fear as a Brooklyn resident that this is all going to blow up in 2024? We're going to look back at it as the worst, you know?
Sure. I have to start with Kyrie. Like, I don't know where he is, like mentally and physically. And maybe this is just COVID related. But I go back to when I first called out Kyrie. You got to let Steve Nash know where you are. You want to be a professional. You want to talk about others being a professional. Let your coach know where you are, not your teammates. Let your coach know. And then, you know, is this COVID related? Is he being irresponsible? You know, that's where it gets dangerous. This is a guy who wanted this. He got KD. You know, here we go. They didn't want to go to the Knicks. They went to Brooklyn. He got what he wanted. And he's not even there right now. And I think when James Harden makes his debut, I don't think Kyrie is going to be on the floor at that time. He may be in COVID protocol here. I mean, at least show up and watch the game. How about being on a Zoom call and watch the game as opposed to being at a birthday party or some political Zoom party or meeting that he was involved in? Yes, Paulie.
I think the scariest thing I read yesterday, I think we talked about it, that all 3 of these guys, after next season, could get out. Yeah. All their contracts opt out by their choice. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. So you got 2 years. You're on the clock. 2 years. Got to make it work. And can you make it work? It's interesting, though, that you have this type of talent and you're asking it to work together. Because it's going to have an all-star game feel to it, where it's going to be clumsy at times. There'll be times when they're unbelievable, but they're not going to play defense. They don't have a rim protector. You know, this is the kind of team that you look at and you go, boy, they're going to be unstoppable. And then you get them into a 7-game series, and then you start to pick them apart a little bit here. But they might be just like James Harden has been his entire career, a great regular season performer. And maybe that's what the Nets turn out to be. Maybe they have magic and make it work, but it's going to start with James Harden because he's going to have the ball in his hands.